Ramirez. Welcome to the Thank You for Saying No podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for saying yes, I guess.
Thank you for saying yes. So I always like to tell the listeners how I meet the guests that come on the show. So I met you at a panel, a women's panel. And I had no idea what the panel was going to be about, but I knew it was going to be great because I saw who was on the panel. And I was sitting in the audience and I was hearing you all share your journeys and your experiences and your trials and your tribulations and like some really hard things that you had overcome. And it was literally Thank You for Saying No themed, like the whole panel. And I was like, I am meant to be here in this audience. And then
Absolutely.
You shared this story, which we'll get to later. But I was like, I have to ask her to come on the show.
And you're right. Yeah. It was right up that alley. Like, thank you for saying no, because there's so many positive things that can come from that. And people have such a negative connotation to when they get turned down or the word no comes into play. And I thought it was really great how we met. And it was natural. I mean, that's the best way for... In my opinion, podcasts are so real. They're so down to earth. You're not walking into like a big studio and have to pitch your movie or your TV show. You know, you're just, it's just about you and the things that you believe in. And I did think that we were perfectly aligned.
Yeah, it really felt that way. So today, you know, you have a really incredible background. You're a renowned actress. You are a mother. You do some really great philanthropic activities. And your life has just really taken like different twists and turns. And you've navigated rejection. And you've really come through it all. And you present in a way that's like, wow, like I want to know what she has to say.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's very sweet of you to say. Yeah, you know, I think that... You don't get to the light without experiencing the dark. And I think that's where we grow and that's where we learn. And I believe right now in my journey, that's where I'm at. You know, I have recently actually experienced something that to me felt hurtful. And in my opinion, what I wanted to do was then look at what is the positive that can come out of this. And I was granted this space and this time to really start focusing back into writing my book. So I'm writing a memoir, which is a self-help memoir. And it comes from a place of finding that truth within me and figuring out, you know, how can I serve? What can I give people of me? And I think that's my real gift, because I can go into places, go into rooms. And what I do for a living, you get told no constantly, right? You know, it's not, you know, people see you and they're like, oh, well, I saw her on that TV show and I saw her in that movie. And they think, you know, this is great. And it is. It's fantastic. But as many ups as you have like triple the downs. And as many yeses as you got 10 times the no's. And you have to somehow pick yourself back up and get back out there. And that's one of the themes within my book is I talk about success and one of the pillars of my interpretation of success, or how I've redefined success, is conquering fear. And when it comes to success, what are we really fearful of? And we're really fearful of failure. You know, we're really fearful of the word no. We're really fearful of getting hurt. All these things. And interestingly enough, that is where you learn the don'ts. You know the do's. You know, you figured out what makes you wake up in the morning, what makes you tick. Hopefully, if you're on a path of self-discovery, you figure out who you are and you've understood where you are and the things that you're good at. And then you have to figure out how to continuously use that to propel you to the next thing. And it's been really great for me, especially in the past year, to see what my place is outside of acting. You know, it's like it took me to this place of advocacy, of like really understanding I have a voice and I do reach people. So what do I want to say to people when I reach them? And it's a big part of my journey now to be able to go and speak on that. And, you know, that the conquering the fear of failure is one of the biggest things, because you have to somehow get back out there and have the confidence to knock on that door again and understand that if you get knocked down, you have to get back up.
Can you tell us about your early childhood and how it was for you coming to the US and how that shaped some of your like early rejections and resiliency?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in the Dominican Republic, and my parents moved to the U.S. when I was 6 months old. So I was raised by my grandmother in a very small town of Cotuí. And when I think back at my life then, the simplicity of how I looked at happiness and the joys of everything, it was so pure, and the reason why I'm here today is because I went through so many difficult moments. It's because there were so many obstacles. Because outside, when I started getting older, even in the Dominican Republic, and started looking around, I'm like, okay, well, what am I here to do? And, you live in a culture where you're getting molded to, at least for me, I grew up with a lot of women in my family, where it was all about being ladylike, right? And molding us into being great daughters so that we can turn into good wives, so that we can turn into good mothers. And fantastic, I am a mother today. Yeah. So I'm very grateful for those lessons. But I also, had to move around a lot. And that's very difficult to continuously adapt. Not being with my parents was a very difficult time for me. And thinking back of my life now with the knowledge and the wisdom that I have now, I feel like it was all for me, not, done to me. And that's what I want to share. That's how I want my life to be looked at, that it is through these struggles that I have learned resilience, that I've gotten to know who I am. And like I said, that you get to understand what works and what doesn't work. And, to me at the time, things felt difficult. I was, used to live with an aunt of mine, Juana, who was amazing, took care of us early on, but she was very rigid and very strict. And so that was a very different way of growing up. And then, you have to get to a place of like, okay, wait, is this what I want for my future? Is this how I want to teach resilience? Is this how I want to teach strength? But had I not gone through that, I might not know. Yeah. And then moving to America at an early age, I started living with my parents. I was 10 years old. I didn't speak the language, and I was coming into this new world and trying to figure myself out. And that's already a difficult, transition. So to come into Washington Heights, and we were living on 169th on Broadway, and think, oh my God, well, my parents haven't lived with us for a lot of years. They must have money. They've been preparing for our arrival the whole time. And then to realize like, oh, wait, they've been struggling for all those years. And, it just makes me feel really grateful today. At the time, I didn't understand it. And I think that's, the leeway that we have to give ourselves, that sometimes those difficult moments are just going to feel difficult. Yeah. And you have to just remind yourself that it's okay to feel like it's difficult. And then to have podcasts like this that make you feel that you can listen to and say, okay, I'm not alone. Exactly. I'm not the only one that has felt the no's. I'm not the only one that has felt like I couldn't move forward. There's an obstacle that's like, oh, you can't get through, a door that you just can't knock down. That's all been a part of my journey. It hasn't been easy.
On Thank You for Saying No, we can talk about some really heavy topics. Check out the show notes for some extra resources to help you process some of those heavier topics.
But I also heard from a very smart woman early on that you have to just have faith that you are special and that you're here to give something good to people, to other people, that you're here to serve in the best way possible. And if you have that faith, then it's easier for you to feel like you're not in the best place every day because you understand that you're here for something much bigger than that.
Yeah. How has your childhood and growing up and what you just described, how has it made you want to teach resiliency? Like when you teach it to your kids or when you write it in your book, how do you want to present it?
I think it's just understanding that life is not easy sometimes, but that if you get through those moments, that you'll get to a different place. And I think, one of the main things is just reminding, and I teach this to my kids on an everyday basis, is, what the world thinks of you is just none of your business. It's what you think of yourself that matters. Yeah. And I say that to my children because you're going to encounter different people in your life, and you're going to be in situations that might not be the most comfortable. And somehow you're going to have to let it go and know that maybe it doesn't belong to you, or see what part of it is you. You know?
That self-reflection is big.
Absolutely.
Recognizing what's you and what is none of your business.
Yeah, exactly. And take
Yeah.
the opportunity to take the good out of those situations. And I think
Mhm.
that is what resilience is. It's not like you're strong and you don't have to go through down moments where you're down. Like I cry like everybody else and
Yeah.
I get down on myself sometimes. But it's being able to then pick yourself back up and then, you know, look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, you're
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
And find whatever ritual you need to find that kind of fills your cup so that you can go back into the world and present yourself in the most positive way. And I think that is what resilience really means. It's not just about, you know, you can get through it. It's like once you're through it, what do you want to do with it?
Mhm.
You know? And we're here to sort of like pay that forward and give
Mhm.
that back, which is one of the reasons why I was doing, you know, it's a Women's Heritage Month. And we were doing that chat over at the Soho House. I'm actually speaking on Wednesday at another, I'm having a speaking engagement over at the Beverly Hills Chamber on Wednesday night. And it's an evening of just, you know, empowering successful women and successful people that want to hear a little bit about, you know, how to move forward and you know what it means to them, and understanding that we're all unique. Right. So what success means to me, it means something totally different to you. You know, what resilience means to me is going to mean something different to you. So really it comes from self-love and all from within.
Yeah. I'm reading this book called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's by the author Viktor Frankl, I think is his name. He was a psychologist. He was in Auschwitz, I believe, and he was writing this like thesis about what the meaning of life is and how to find it and why it's important. And then his thesis got taken and destroyed, and you know, so while he was in Auschwitz, he was still thinking about this concept, and when he got out, he wrote a book about it, and it's like a really amazing, millions of copies have been sold, and it's like people follow this like theory, I guess, but it's about what you just said, that the finding purpose in life is personal to you, and you have to find what your purpose is. There's not just one, this is the purpose of life, this is what it is.
Exactly.
It's everyone has their own purpose, and they have to find the meaning in it to give them fulfillment and to make them want to wake up every day. It's personal.
Absolutely. It is completely personal because we're all on this, you know, journey of self-discovery. Like I said, you know, and I when I moved to America, one of the biggest things, and again, just to talk about a little bit what I'm speaking about on Wednesday, which is success, is, you know, I moved to America is a very individualistic society. Right. And it's all about the you and the go-getter. And when I met my parents, when I got reintroduced to my parents and living with them here, I realized that to them, you know, success was directly, you know, correlated with financial stability. Right. And which is why my parents early on wanted me to be a lawyer. You're a lawyer, right? So, you know, it was either that or I argued too much. So I always, you know, I always wanted to, I was considered a rebel in my house just because I had something to say. And I really, you know, with conviction felt like I was, you know, in the right of saying it. And I've learned in life that, you know, it's not about right or wrong. It's just what feels right for you might be different than what feels right for other people. But I think within that concept, what I loved was that I became curious because I didn't want to be a lawyer. And then I was like, okay, well, got it. So in Dominican Republic, it was all about like, you know, becoming a mother, and, you know, that was their main concern. And then I come here and it's all about like making money, and that's their main concern. And so it kind of opened up this, like my mind into being curious about what else, how can I define that for myself? You know, what else what are the things that make me tick? What are the things that make me want to get up in the morning and do something great? And then once I got past that, I realized that, okay, well, now I'm making money, and then I got married, and I have 2 kids, and now I have a family. And then I said to myself, well, what else? So how can I, at this point, move the needle forward, and how can I find my purpose? And I think that's when it changed for me. And it's just, you know, to say that's a whole journey of figuring that out. I mean, it's not something that, you know, straight like out of school, or, you know what I mean? It just dawns on you one day. It just, you know, it is a lot of self-work and paying attention to the things that you really are into, and figuring out how do you share that with the masses? You know, what is your piece of the puzzle? And then understand that you're just a piece of the puzzle. Like what piece is next to you that you can fit really good with, and then uplift them, you know, and then serve them. And then internally, in turn, they will serve you. And somehow, you know, it's all we're all a part of a way bigger thing, right? So we're not doing this alone. We're not doing this thing called life by ourselves. Yes, it all comes from within, and yes, you have to find that strength from within, and your own happiness is yours. But then, how do you share that? You know, so that you can actually leave something here and continue on your journey from here on in and make that matter.
Hey everybody, real quick, we have some awesome merch and you are gonna wanna check it out. I've linked it in the show notes. And listen, I pretty much exclusively wear Thank You for Saying No merch because it's literally that fashionable and that comfortable. We have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, canvas bags. The t-shirts say Thank You for Saying No across the chest. The hoodies say Rejection is Redirection, like this hoodie right here. And there's more to come, so it's very cute. Okay, go check it out. How did you find what your next purpose was? Like, can you describe that journey a little bit?
Yeah, you know, I think for me, it started a little while back because I was already 2017. I was doing a TV show, and I was already married and had my children. And I had been working constantly, and I wasn't spending enough time with my family. And I realized that was something that really mattered to me. But at the time, I was busy, you know, in my career, and you know, putting that, you know, having that take precedence as well, because it's something that's also feeding my family. And so I was doing it for them. And I think within that, I started getting lost in like, what am I really doing for existence, for life, for the human, you know, race? Like, we're here as souls. And even though my children are mine, they're still their individual souls, and they all have to figure out what their purpose is. And so I ended up having a surgery that led to a chemical imbalance. And within that year, I was still working and having to promote shows and having to be out there, and I couldn't say anything to anybody because, you know, they think I'm crazy because obviously
it's not as accepted in the industry yet.
Well, it's not just the industry. I think in life, I think mental health is something that, you know, a lot of us are not comfortable with. And so, you know, that was a journey that I was on. And I think through that journey, I started really healing myself. And when I got to a place of like, I really wanted to heal, and I really wanted to understand my path and the things that outside of work made me who I was. The reasons why I was doing well at my job was because I had this gift of touching people, or being able to be vulnerable and be open and share that with the masses. And I think that's when I started realizing that maybe I'm here to share my journey, to share my wisdom, to share those lessons. And that's for me when it started changing. It was a few years ago. And then recently, last year, I had a situation where that led me to have the time and space where I could just focus on that, you know. And again, I think through writing my memoir, and trying to look at my life and the things that had happened in my life with a different lens, you know, and trying to look at them, like you said, you know, thank you for saying no. Like, if you look at the word no from a different angle, backwards, it says on. So I'm like, okay, well, how can I turn that switch on? So I'm turning it on. You know what I mean? It's on. And so then I had to figure out, well, what am I turning on? You know? And for me, what really spoke to me was this, you know, this place of advocacy, of wanting to share the things that I had learned, and to let people know that, you know, you're not alone, and that things do get better, and that there is a positive that comes from every negative.
Yeah. Are you comfortable sharing the story of when you went to India to sort of regroup? Or you went to was it a monk?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay. That was such a moving story. Can you share that with us?
Yes. So, you know, again, I had this chemical imbalance that happened after being under anesthesia for longer than expected. And because I had to constantly still, you know, work, they had suggested that we spoke to the surgeon told me what happened, because
Mhm.
we had no idea at the beginning. I just thought I was going crazy.
Yeah.
And once we figured out what was wrong, I started seeing a psychiatrist that put me on this medication, and I was on antidepressants for almost a year. And I'm a feeler, right?
Mhm.
I like to feel things. And even from in my profession, I like to live in those moments and feel these emotions, whether they're happy and maybe
Yeah.
funny or sad. I want to feel. And the antidepressants were sort of numbing that for me. And then I think I got into a place where I got chronically depressed. I was already dealing with, postpartum depression that I never dealt with. I, had given birth to my children and had to be back at work 2.5 weeks later.
Wow.
And so, it's
Yeah.
a blessing to have been experiencing that. And so I felt really guilty, that how can I say no to work? Because, here are all these people that are in the world that, like, of course they want to be actors, and here I am having these jobs. And how can I then, not want to thrive in them?
Yeah.
But I had to take care of myself, and I didn't. And then one day I just woke up and I realized that I wasn't okay. And that I wasn't not just okay, that I was not going down a good path, I was under the medication. It had pushed me to a place where, I can call it the place of no return. I think that's the best way for me to put it. Sorry, I get a little emotional when I think back on it, because it was a very difficult time.
Yeah.
I know I started reading more and doing some digging on spirituality. And for me, that's what spoke to me. For everybody it's different, right?
Yeah.
I don't claim to know what somebody else needs. But for me, I felt like that's what I needed. And I called a friend of mine who happens to be part of my tribe now, Ramona Braganza. She's one of the founders of 321 Empowerment, is this organization who the Beverly Hills Chamber is working with. And she's the one that called me to speak actually on Wednesday.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you asked me this question. But to bring it full circle, I called her up, and she had trained me when I did the movie X-Men in Vancouver. I asked her if she knew anybody that was some kind of guru or someone that was, dove into that place of his spirituality. And she recommended Talavan Krishna, who I called my guru now. And I spoke to him over the phone. He gave me a mantra for me to chant at times that I was able to not be on the medication. And I started chanting. And it made me feel like it still made my mind feel still.
Yeah.
And that got me to a better place. And then I booked a trip to India. I called my husband, who we were not doing great at the time. Obviously, it was a very difficult time, and I was working. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to go to India for 21 days." I was like, "What?" And I was very grateful to him, because he did come with me, because he didn't want me to just disappear by myself. He knew that I wasn't right, that I wasn't doing great, but he allowed me to have my own experience. He sort of stayed behind and just let me experience what I needed to. And I checked into this holistic center called the IBAT Center in India, and every day they took televisions away and no phones, and they had own plane in the vicinity every single day, and 3 meals a day. It was very strict, but also very freeing, because you had all this time just with you. And I think I spent the first week and a half crying most of the time,
No, seriously.
Just put off the medication and just with me, and just trying to understand. I had spent a year seeing a therapist, seeing a psychologist, seeing a psychiatrist. I knew where the trauma was. You know what I mean? I had figured out, okay, so in college that happened. And you know what I mean?
Yes.
When I started working, this happened, and this guy was an asshole. You know what I mean?
Totally.
All these things, where my heart got broken for the first time, and all these things that were a part of me that I guess, you push down sometimes when you're that kind of person that, I gotta go, and I'm okay. And so then I never really dealt with any of these things. So they were all up in the surface. And I think that was driving me crazy, because now I'm like, what do I do with all this?
I do.
And it made me have the space to just be quiet and to have to acknowledge every single thing, and then to be able to let it go. You know, like I said, it was a part of me.
Mhm.
And yes, your past, it shapes you, but it doesn't become you.
Yes.
You know, and your future so far ahead, it'll give you anxiety if you think too far ahead. It's about, you know,
Right
it's about
now.
right now,
Yeah.
you know, loving yourself right now in that moment. And that to me was, you know, I always say India changed my life.
Mhm.
And that trip changed my life because it changed my behavior. And if you don't change your behavior, the outcome will always be the same.
Yeah.
And I was ready for the outcome to be different. I didn't want to be a victim anymore. I didn't want things to happen to me and then all of a sudden me act or react in a certain way and then feel like somehow my actions were validated because something happened to me. I wanted to feel proud of how I handled situations. And I have to tell you that I think life has thrown things my way since, and I'm very proud of how gracefully I handle things and how I've moved forward and where I'm at now. Like, I don't need to acknowledge these negative things. I'm moving on.
Yeah.
And 2025, that's what it feels like for me. It's just this moment of like, for a lot of people, I think it's just so we can switch it up.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to live in this like, you know, dramatic chaos, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of chaos in the world if you just live in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, I call it static. You have to quiet the static somehow, you know, and get to a place and figure out what works for you so that the static is quiet and you can be centered and you can be stable. And I got to tell you, I feel stronger than I ever felt in my life. Mm-hmm. And that's different. I mean, at one point I would fight. Mm-hmm. Like literally.
That's awesome.
I'm like, I don't feel the need to do that.
Yeah. No, I'm getting emotional hearing you share this again. Even though this is my second time hearing it, but it's just so, I guess it's because I relate to it so much. I was in a similar place where I felt like I was losing my mind and I like knew what the problem was, but I didn't know how to like quiet the static. I didn't know how to like make it better and for me, the issue was, it was like I lost trust in myself. I lost trust in, knowing that I can handle whatever it is, and not in the way where it's like, I don't need anybody, not in that way, but in the way where like, I got me, like, don't you remember who you are? It's like, I forgot who I was and what I was capable of. And I was letting people's words affect me when I shouldn't have.
For you, what helped you?
For me, it was therapy. I've been in therapy. It's been like 2 years, I think, but that helped a lot. I did a lot of self-reflection. I did a lot of writing. I go to temple. I'm Jewish, so I go to temple every Friday and I speak about it to people and I ask for other people's experiences. I'm the kind of person who, like, if I'm going through something, I don't mind talking about it. Mm-hmm. I'm always curious how people get through things because we all do it differently. And I like to learn how people get through things and even try some things that I hear for myself. And not everything works for me because we're all different, but it's like that. It's speaking up and talking about it and allowing it to lose power. And I leaned into my family a lot, and my family actually showed up for me in ways that I didn't expect or even like knew was going to happen, but they showed up. And so I also didn't feel alone anymore. Like I felt super supported and they helped remind me like who I am. And so, yeah, I was,
beautiful.
Thank you. I was reading, I think it was In the Artist's Way. I'm reading so many books right now. I don't even know like what. I'm in this like big reading kick. I read so much.
I love it. I can't wait to give you my book.
Oh, I'm so excited to read it. And they were talking about how being insane is very similar, almost the same as being sane.
Oh yeah.
And for me, that has like rung true because the times where my insanity has been at an all-time high is when the sane, like the most clarity comes. Even if it takes a while, the most clarity will come after that. That's
really beautiful. I mean, I do think, you know, it's like they say there's a fine line between love and hate, you know, like everything, you know, it's yin and yang, you know, we're all, you know, it's very much, everything is very much together. And so you have to somehow get yourself to the other side. And, you know, one of the things that I feel like is very helpful is just reminding myself to celebrate all the little wins, you
Mm-hmm,
know?
mm-hmm.
Like I say it all the time. I'm like, I want to reach for that star that's like way up there, right?
Yeah.
But there's all these little stars that are happening like right here
Yeah.
before you get up there. And so like when you reach that little star, then celebrate that,
Mm-hmm.
because that is what's going to get you, you know, to have the confidence and to have the self, you know, love that you need to have to then walk through the next door.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also start noticing that maybe there's other doors that open up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I never really, you know, paid attention to. I think sometimes when you get into this cycle and you start becoming aware of what you're good at and you start doing it, you focus just on that so much.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes life will knock you out just to be like, hey, maybe this other thing right here, maybe look over there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a little bit of like a reminder of, and that's what I'm saying about, you know, the importance of knowing and being aware of everything that's around you when you're down.
Yeah.
Because you think you're down and that something, you know, just came at you, and maybe there was a reason for that. And I do believe that now more than ever, I do have faith in that.
Yeah.
That there are other things that can open up. And that's why I say, like, for me, the last year has been really empowering, because I feel like I have seen another door and I have seen another moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, you know, I've been trying to write my book for years, and I didn't understand the message. Like, what am I really wanting to say?
Yeah.
And now I see it clearly, and to be able to see that path and to say that I wanted to start, you know, speaking engagements and to really start sharing, you know, the things that I've learned. And all these things are now happening in which I get to do that. This is your podcast included, that I get to sort of share the things that have helped me.
Yeah.
And I do believe that celebrating the little things is super important, because it allows you to continue with the perseverance, to continue, to keep going, to not get down on yourself and stop.
Yeah.
Right? To remind yourself that you are great.
Yeah.
You know
Exactly.
what I mean? And whatever that is, you know.
Yeah.
Today for me is that I got to, you know, take my dog to the vet, and, you know, I got her all her meds and all the things that she needed. And, you know, it was her annual, and we're traveling soon. So I got her certificate for travel. And I'm like, okay, I did great today.
Yes.
Before I walked into this podcast.
Yeah.
You know, you got to remind yourself not to celebrate too much, that you forget that you're going for that star. For the star up there, because that's also a problem. But it's, you know, it's just really great to remind yourself, like, hey, you did something great today, and you know what I mean, and that's a part of you that you should be proud of. You know, you walked into that room and, you know, without expectation. And so that moment, and you lived in it purely, and you did your best, and so then be proud of that, because you never know.
Yeah.
What's going to happen after you walk out of that door. You never know whether that's going to, you know, propel something else or what you think it's supposed to be. And living life without expectation is very difficult.
But it's it's a less stressful life, even though it's harder. If you have no expectations, you get let down way less.
No, because it's like, you know, when you don't have, sometimes we think we know what the outcome should be. But you don't. I mean, that's what I'm talking about when I say, you know, have faith.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, there is a greater good that you're a part of. And I do believe that we're all innately good.
Yeah.
You know, I can look back at things that I've gone through, or people that I say, wow, why did they do that to me? Why did that feel so bad? And then I have to then have an understanding of, like, well, maybe they were going through something. You know, why don't I try to look at it from a place of, you know, compassion?
Yeah.
Why don't I try to have empathy, you know, and not, you know, think, well, that should have turned out differently for me. It turned out exactly how it was supposed to for me.
Yeah.
And I have to, you know, and to be able to accept it, and to let it go, and to forgive, and to not judge.
Yeah.
You know, that's a whole other ball game.
Yeah. And that's all, like, thank you for saying no. That's like the undertones or the whispers of thank you for saying no, is like trusting that it's all actually working out for you. That even in these moments where we feel like we're falling apart, and you had to go to India, I had to do 2 years of therapy and I'm still in it. But like these moments, these big life, sometimes years long no moments, are actually like transforming into the greatest thing that we could have ever gone through.
Oh, for sure. It's a transformative journey, you know, like we're all starting as one thing, and we're, you know, evolving into something else. And it's all a part of what we're here to do. We're here to learn.
Mm-hmm.
We're, as human beings, we're, like I say all the time, this is just a skin. And my kids play this game where they do all these different skins. And I was like, actually, the game is actually really good. Like, here I was telling them not to play this game for the longest time, or you're spending too much time on the computer playing this game.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at what the game was. And then I said, maybe this is a great opportunity for me to see how I can use it as a tool to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
Something that really can be long lasting and can change their lives. And I think that's what I took out of that game. I said, this is the skin that you're in. Your soul is way beyond this.
Mm-hmm.
You're just here within this skin to learn the lessons that you're going to learn in life, in this particular journey that you're living in this skin. And so to be able to get to a place where you get to love your skin, where you get to accept your skin, and then accept other people's skins, and then not feel like you have all the answers. That's what life is about. It's a constant, space where you get to learn, and interestingly enough, you only really learn when you fall.
Yeah.
It is the thank you for saying no moments that actually really teach you.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that, like, in the light, you're having fun, and in the light, you're hanging out, and you got to the light because you went through the dark.
Yep.
And so the more times you get to the light, the harder the dark gets, because then you have to learn something else. And so now you've graduated.
Yeah.
You said it becomes a little more difficult. Yeah. Now it could hurt a little more. But the trick is to figure out how long you stay in that hurt. And the more aware you are, and the more conscious you are of your existence now, and how you can give that forward and pay that forward in a way that really serves other people. This is what we're here for. It's not just for us. I mean, it's great to be here for us, but then to be able to open up other people's minds and to share your moments with them. Yeah. I don't consider myself a teacher. I would never say that I'm a teacher, because I'm still learning, but I am sharing. And so I'm allowing people on my journey, and hopefully that evokes some kind of, it's thought-provoking enough that they can start realizing their journey.
Yeah. I mean, it was for me, for sure. Meeting you and hearing you speak out, you've already had that effect on me.
Oh, you're so sweet. This is great. You're like the sweetest person. It's
I'm so serious.
I love it. They say you start like being around and you end up with really like-minded people. And the more conscious you become and the more aware you become and living in that, you get to be in that space. So I'm very grateful that I met you, and I'm very honored to be here and sharing a real story, and something that I think, the world needs to hear. I love your podcast for that.
Thank you. Do you want to share your, anything for the listeners? Anything where they can find things you're working on, or anything you want to share?
Well, I'll tell you that for right now, so I've had a YouTube channel that I had on forever, and I started it many, many moons ago. I was coming back. I was doing the show Sweet Tooth, and it was during the COVID lockdown, and we were in New Zealand where there was no COVID. And I think we were also isolated from our families because nobody could come visit us. And I started the channel then, and it's all little moments of meditations and little mantras. And then I started doing some cooking with my daughter. So it's a little bit of everything. And just recently, I decided that I would start a playlist that will have things like this, like talks that I do or speeches that I'm a part of. And it's a very soulful kind of playlist. So it's at the Dania Ramirez on YouTube. You can also find that link on my Instagram. And my Instagram is at Dania J Ramirez. That's the same on X. That's the same on Facebook. So you can cross back and forth. Nice. And it's spelled DANIAJRAMIREZ. There you go. That's all for now. Check back with us later. No, I'm excited. And I do have a lot of great things coming up. I am excited about the book. I'm finishing it off. So when it's ready, I'll let you guys know through those channels. I have some music on the horizon that I'm just doing for fun. Nice. And trying to create a comedic character. And that'll be DR the rapper. So look out for that.
I love it.
So when I show up as DR the rapper, I'll be a completely different person.
That's awesome. This is the golden ticket question here, because I've really enjoyed talking with you today. Time has actually flown by. I don't even know if you realize what time it is, but it's seriously flown by. It feels like it's been 2 seconds, but
I have no idea. Time can bend, right?
I feel like we just bent time.
Okay, great.
But everything you said, it really means a lot, because for the listeners, this is our first time really talking, like one-on-one. I've obviously heard you speak at that event, but this is our like first time really talking and like connecting, and just the fact that like we could cry together and we just met today. Like it just means a lot that you come on the show, you made the time to do this, you identify with the theme. It really means a lot that you came here today. And so we'll end with this golden ticket question that I always ask, but are you thankful for all your no's?
I am more than thankful. I feel blessed and I feel really grateful for all the no's. Like I said, without the no's, I would not have found the yes within me.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful for the no's. And with that, I'm going to say namaste right to camera. The spirit in me recognizes the spirit in you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And thank you guys for watching.
On the podcast, we want to connect with the audience and create a community that inspires and grows together. We have a way to do that. Submit your own thank you for saying no moment or story and how it's impacted your life in a great way, and then we'll read it on the podcast. There's a form linked in the description where you can submit. You can respond anonymously, of course, but if you leave your name and your social media, we'll give you a little shout out when we read your submission. And all submissions will be part of a drawing to win some exclusive Thank You for Saying No merch. Follow and subscribe to the Thank You for Saying No podcast, and you'll get every episode as soon as it's released.